It's now time for Trivia Tracks with yours truly, Price Robertson. This edition of Trivia Tracks is brought to you by Washita Valley Respiratory Care and Beth Smith at Edward Jones. One of the pioneers of the revisionist Western, Sam Peckinpah employed a visually innovative and explicit depiction of action and violence to his movies, which dealt with the conflict between values and ideals, as well as the corruption and violence in human society. Born in Fresno, California on February 21, 1925, Peckinpah spent much time skipping school with his brother to engage in cowboy activities on their grandfather Denver Church's ranch, such as trapping, branding, and shooting. In high school, he played on the junior varsity football team, but frequent fighting and discipline problems caused his parents to enroll him in the San Rafael Military Academy for his senior year. During World War II, he enlisted in the Marines, fighting against the Japanese in China. After his discharge, he majored in drama and married his first wife, Marie Selland, in 1947. It was she who first exposed him to directing. Following college graduation, he worked as a stagehand at a local TV station. In 1954, director Don Siegel hired him as a dialogue coach for the film Riot in Cell Block 11. He served in this capacity for 4 more Siegel films, including 1956 sci-fi classic Invasion of the Body Snatchers, on which he had a small role as a meter reader. Later in the 50s, he jumped to TV, writing and directing episodes for westerns such as Gunsmoke, Have Gun Will Traveled, and The Rifleman, whose pilot script titled The Sharpshooter, Peckinpah had originally written for Gunsmoke, but was rejected due to content. Peckinpah then sold it to Zane Grey Theater, which eventually aired the episode that doubled as the pilot for The Rifleman later that fall. By the late 60s, Peckinpah had already added some Western films to his resume, with hits such as Ride the High Country, Major Dundee, and especially The Wild Bunch, which was inspired by a number of forces. His hunger to return to films, the violent scene in Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde, America's growing frustration with the Vietnam War, and what he perceived to be the utter lack of reality seen in westerns up to that time. Even before he branched into making movies, Sam Peckinpah had a combative streak. In his stagehand days, he was kicked off the set of a Liberace show for not wearing a tie and refused to cue a car salesman during a live feed. Throughout much of his adult life, Peckinpah was affected by alcoholism and other forms of drug addiction. According to some accounts, he also suffered from mental illness. During filming of his movies, he often clashed with actors and producers. Early in production of The Cincinnati Kid, Peckinpah was fired by producer Martin Ranzohoff when some nude scenes were discovered. An experienced hunter, Peckinpah was fascinated with firearms and was known to shoot the mirrors in his house while abusing alcohol, an image which occurs several times in his films. His reputation as a hard-living brute with a taste for violence, inspired by the content in his most popular films and in many ways perpetuated by himself, affected his artistic legacy. During the 1970s, he rolled out even more successes, including Straw Dogs, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, Convoy, and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, which in the eyes of his admirers was the last true Peckinpah film. By that time, Peckinpah had long been divorced from his first wife, was briefly married to Joey Gould, and remarried his second wife, Mexican actress Begonia Palacios, in 1974. By the early 80s, Sam Peckinpah's hard living had finally caught up with him. Regardless, he continued to work, directing a couple of music videos for Julian Lennon, son of John Lennon. Peckinpah died of heart failure on December 28, 1984, at the age of 59. He was working on yet another film script at the time of his death. Till next time, I'm Price Robertson. Amazed by today's trivia? Then join me every Monday through Friday morning for Trivia Tracks on Fox Sports Camden 97.1.